Welcome to Talking to Teachers, or for short, T-Cubed. I'm Josh Sliceloft alongside Tanis Rastogi. In this podcast, we will introduce you to different teachers and hopefully get to know them better as people along the way. We believe that behind every teacher is an even greater individual. Our second teacher with us is Mrs. Ulf.
How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are both of you?
Doing good? Yeah.
Today's the release date of Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
And Josh and I have both been waiting, I don't know how long. I started watching those movies when I was 9 years old. I think the first one I saw of like the whole series was Captain America, the first one. What was the first one you saw?
I think Iron Man was the first one, but I saw it a couple years after it had come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe like 2010 or so, yeah.
So is tonight the night that
Yeah.
you go see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's seeing it tonight.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it tomorrow morning.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
I'm not into it. And
No?
I it's nothing against it. I've never gotten into it. So I don't know what all the hype's about.
I mean,
Yeah, there's
it's
definitely a lot
People
of
are
hype.
living for this.
It's
Yeah.
crazy because there's been 22 films up to this point, and the 23rd one just came out today.
Wow.
So I've seen every single one of them, and I think you have too.
Mhm.
We've grown up with this in our
Sure.
childhood,
Yeah.
so we have an attachment to these
Yeah.
superheroes. Like
yeah.
I have an attachment to Captain America.
Aw.
Like I think he's just the coolest superhero ever because
Yeah.
he just stands for what's right and
Yeah.
what his heart. What he follows what his heart says, and he does that throughout the stories. And I just gravitate towards that. I know
Yeah.
your favorite superhero is Iron Man.
Yeah, Iron Man, Thor.
And why
yeah.
is that?
I don't know. I mean, I was always a big fan of, the whole Iron Man thing, like the, robotic suit you can, like, fly around in and all that. I just thought that was really cool. And then one of the more recent Thor movies kind of, like, completely broke down the character and, like, rebuilt him. And now he's a lot cooler than he used to be. Like, he's more, I guess, personable and, like, not as, like, airheady, I guess, as he used to be in the older ones. So,
Oh,
a lot of
that's
character
part of
development.
your generation.
yeah,
It is.
really
That's why
is,
everyone's
yeah.
so into it.
And they're
right now.
just engaging stories,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they don't shy away from, like Josh said, they break down characters and they rebuild them,
Mhm.
and that's
Wow.
not something you get to see very often, especially because they have so many movies they get to build these characters up, and I mean it's just time. We've spent so much time with these characters.
Oh.
It's great.
So this is the end, correct?
This is
the
the
last
end.
one. Okay, so that's
Well,
why everyone.
It's the last one of this saga, I
Saga,
guess,
yeah.
and then I think they have plans to keep doing it because at the end of the day, it's a property and they want to keep making
Right.
the money, but
Right.
Right.
it's still good.
Yeah,
It's still good. I think money feels secondary when it comes to these movies because the
Mhm.
stories and the characters are always
Right.
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's why they do so well, I think.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
so. Yeah. I got to meet your daughter yesterday at
Yep.
Take Your Child to Work Day.
Mhm.
And when I came home, I realized that I've met 3 generations of your family.
Mhm.
We both had your mom
Mhm.
in 5th grade.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know you did.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was in her class for the whole year, and Josh kind of switched off.
Yeah, it was like the flip class or whatever they do there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then I have
Uh-huh.
you now,
Yes.
and then I got to meet your daughter.
Yes.
So how has being a parent, I guess, I want to ask your
Uh-huh.
mom this too.
hmm
How has being a parent changed you as a teacher?
I'll be honest with you. When I found out that I was pregnant with Violet, one of the first thoughts that I had was, will I still be an effective teacher? That was one of my biggest fears. People thought I was crazy that I even worried about that. But before her, I put all of my energy and my passion into teaching. So I couldn't imagine splitting my love and my passion with somebody else. And she came along, and ironically, the year I came back after having Violet, I would probably still think of that as one of my best years of teaching. And I think it's only gotten better. I think I've become a better teacher, and that's what I was so scared of, that I would not be effective. But I think I'm much better. I view everything differently after her. And my whole life, I grew up, my mom actually used to always tell me that everybody is somebody's son or daughter. And I actually said that in the graduation speech that I gave in 2015. I said, just remember to go out into the world and treat everybody kindly because everybody is somebody's son or daughter. And before Violet, I understood it to a degree, but now I realize that every student in my class is it's a Violet, it's a James, my son, and I treat my students the way I would want a teacher to treat them someday in class. So I think I'm more effective, actually, because I'm a teacher and almost like a mother figure now and an older sister, if you will.
Do you think the reverse is true? Do you think that you being a teacher has kind of prepared you for,
Yeah.
Later in life when your daughter's going to be the same age as those kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was also scared that my kids, my children at home would feel as though me being out of the house, working full-time, being a teacher, I think I was scared that they would think I didn't love them or that I didn't want to be with them. But actually, I think it's the reverse. I think that Violet already sees how much I love teaching. And I hope that James, when he gets old enough, will see the same thing. And I hope to model that for my kids, that it's okay to be a parent and a working parent and to love what you do, because teaching gives me life. And so I want my kids to someday have a job that they love as much as I do.
That's such a nice thing, yeah.
It's really important.
So how much did your mom, because she is a teacher, how much did she influence you in making that choice? Was it organic for you to pick teaching? It definitely sounds like it was.
It was. A lot of teachers say, oh, I never thought I'd be a teacher. I never thought I'd be a high school teacher. I always knew I'd be a teacher. It's just, it runs in my family. I would watch the joy it brought to my mom, and I thought, if she's this happy doing something daily, this has to be a good thing. And I've always wanted to help people, no matter what I did in life, and this just seemed like a natural path for me, that I could help people every day of my life. And so, but originally I was only majoring in elementary ed. I thought I would be an elementary ed Spanish teacher. And then my last year of college, actually, a professor said to me, you should probably consider secondary ed because you're studying Spanish. And I think that being a high school Spanish teacher would be, very gratifying for you. And I considered it. And then I tried it out. And I went into a high school classroom one day just to experience it for the first time. And I actually fell in love with it. And so I asked if I could add it as my third major. And they said, okay, just so you finish all the requirements. And I did. And I ended up student teaching in a high school, very different than Peter's, and I realized that was my gift, and I think everybody needs to use their gift in life.
3 majors. Mm-hmm. That was your third major.
Yeah.
So what were the other
Spanish, elementary ed, and secondary ed, and now I have my master's in English as a second language too.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think you would go back and teach at an elementary school, or do you find?
No, I have no desire. It's not that I don't like little kids, but I just don't think I would use my brain in the way that I use it every day with you guys.
Yeah.
I just feel as though I'm cut out to work with older students. You almost feel like colleagues in a sense, and I just feel like I'm a more cerebral, like deep thinker, and I just relate to high school students better. I don't think I would be satisfied every day just having, conversations with little kids, even though it's impactful.
Yeah.
I think this is more gratifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that, yeah.
Yeah.
I get that, yeah.
Plus, you're young adults, you're going off into the real world next year. Like, I even think if I ever lose seniors, if they ever told me you're not teaching AP anymore, I would feel like a piece of my body's missing. I love seniors, especially, not just high school, but seniors. There's something about the fact that you're about to go embark on your life's journey, and we're the last people you see.
Yeah.
We're your last teachers.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's such a significant thing, and so I would never want to lose teaching seniors.
Do you have any specific knowledge that you want to impart on us, or do you just want to be there?
It's
so that
funny.
when the moment comes that you can
I know. It's funny. When they asked me to be the commencement speaker in 2015, I said in that speech what I would say today. And I always wonder, like, if they chose me again, would I say yes? And I don't know if I would, because I've said what I had to say already. And my only wisdom, it's not really about academics and school. It's just about life. I talked about in that speech how everyone is someone's son or daughter, and just also about how everyone, carries a cross in life and how to be empathetic. And I feel like that's a big push now in Peters Township School District with the Rachel's Challenge. Now everyone's starting to think like that, and, hopefully that's becoming more prevalent. But I wasn't noticing a lot of that back in 2015, and so I thought, what's the one thing I can leave seniors with? And I talked about that, about how everyone's carrying a cross, and how you need to be kind and empathetic to everyone, because we tend to come to school sometimes. I had heard somebody mention that we come with masks on, and we put on a front and we put on a face every day to survive here, but that we're all going through stuff, and so just to be kind to somebody. I think that makes more of an influence in a student's life than the academics that and the lessons academically that we teach you. I think more than that, you'll remember a teacher who was kind to you.
There's a
and who
quote
listened.
right there that just says, you remember how somebody made you feel, but you won't exactly remember what they said.
Is that Maya Angelou? Yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
Maya Angelou,
I love that quote.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I think
I believe in
butchered
that
it, but-
firmly.
Yeah.
I believe in that. And that actually led my speech that year, too, because I talked about how I went to Peters and how I had Mrs. Kendrick, I had Mrs. Canfield, and I opened up my speech talking about how both of those women were significant parts of my life and why I became a teacher, but I could not tell you anything about chemistry now, and I couldn't tell you anything about calculus. At the time I could, but I can't now, and I'm still a successful adult. But what I remember is how Mrs. Kendrick and Mrs. Canfield made me feel.
Yeah.
And they motivated me to be a high school teacher, and here I am now. So I think lessons like that, just how to be a good human and a good person, are more important sometimes than the academic lessons. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think you definitely have an eye for human beings.
Mhm.
I think you have like a special perception into like how we feel, how we think.
Mm-hmm.
So is that why you chose Spanish and not
Yes.
math or
Yes.
science?
I can't imagine teaching a content area, and God bless the people who do, but I couldn't imagine teaching a content area that didn't involve daily communication and opening up to each other and expressing yourself, because you're right. That's just what I feel maybe is my gift or my strength, but I love people and I love students and I want to get to know them and I want to connect with them, and I don't think I could in the capacity that I do if I taught another content area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the way you teach Spanish, I've noticed it's not so much about the daily grammar lessons. It's more about trying to get kids to know about the culture.
Mm-hmm. Just so you can communicate. I always say to my students, it doesn't matter. The grammar doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
What needs to happen is an authentic and, like you said, organic conversation between two people. Like that's what life's all about. And I think about people I've met throughout my life who were struggling because they couldn't speak English here in the United States, and me being able to speak Spanish to them, automatically it just creates this connection, this understanding. It softens a person. If somebody's struggling, like in a grocery store, I'll never forget, I was at Walmart one time and I saw a guy struggling because he couldn't understand the signs in the different aisles and where he could find, I'll never forget, pickles. And for some reason, he looked like he was struggling, so I just went up to him and I just took a shot at it, and I thought, okay, I think he speaks Spanish, and I went up to him and I asked him if he needed help in Spanish, and it was like immediately his face kind of just softened and he relaxed and he said, yeah, and he asked me where the pepinillos were, the pickles, and I was like, are you okay? And I started talking, and then you leave and you go, okay, I just told a guy where to find pickles and stuff, but in that moment, that was more than just the pickles I think are over here.
Yeah.
It was, I kind of calmed him down, and I
Yeah.
showed him that I respect him and that he's not an outsider, and that's what I think this is all about. I mean, I teach language because I love people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Do you think you would have any interest in, like, maybe going to a Spanish-speaking country and teaching English? Would that be something you're interested in, or ever even?
Possibly in the future, but I honestly could never see myself leaving here.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that they would like to leave here, or they don't think high school is something they want to do forever. They look forward to retirement, things like that. And I honestly fear retirement. This place, like I mentioned earlier, it gives me life. Along with my family, I consider my students my family too. And I love high school. I feel like I found my niche, and I don't feel like I need to do much more. But if retirement happens and something like that opens up in my life, I would consider it. Yeah. For sure.
There was a quote that you just reminded me of. I think it was Thomas Edison. He said, like, I've never worked a day in my life. It was all fun.
Yeah,
And that's like
yeah.
exactly what that reminded me of.
It
And
is.
that's how you know, honestly.
I mean, it is hard work. Don't get me wrong. There are aspects of this job that are a lot of work, and you don't stop at 2:25. You don't stop at 2:50 p.m. when the teachers get dismissed. You put in a lot of late hours, especially when you're also a parent and you have to take care of your family. And then when they go to bed, then you start the planning and the prepping and the grading. So this isn't for the faint of heart, but at the same time, there's nothing that I'd rather do. There's no other profession I'd want to try out. I love it.
So I've been in your class for almost a year now, And when I look back at all the other teachers that I've had, I feel like none of them connect more with the mood of the classroom as well as you do.
That's a blessing and a curse. That's a blessing and a curse, though.
Because there's times when, everybody can feel the mood of the classroom's not where it should be. It's not a place where we could all, absorb the learning that you could provide us. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of slow down and try to break down the lesson and try to give it to us in, little pieces so that we take it. You don't give us a big dish and here, eat this.
I know. I know.
So I'm just wondering, how did you get there? How did you learn to do that? When did you start doing that? Let's just start there. When did you start doing it? Has it always been a part of your style?
It has improved over time, but I will tell you, I have always done that because, one of the things I heard in an education class in college, one of our professors said that he firmly believed that students can't learn unless they feel safe first. They have to feel safe in order to learn. And I do believe that's true. And maybe safe is a strong word, but they have to feel comfortable to learn, especially a language. You can't speak and comprehend things when you're nervous. And so I've experienced both types of classrooms in a language environment. I've experienced teachers who are extremely strict and judgmental and, harsh. And that type of classroom was not facilitating language learning, in my opinion. When I felt comfortable and accepted and valued, I could speak better Spanish and I could comprehend and I loved the language. So I refuse to make my classroom a place with high stress. I want everyone to feel like they have a voice because the goal is to get you out of my classroom in June being proficient in a language. And you won't be proficient if you feel like every time you make a mistake, someone's going to yell at you or make fun of you.
Yeah.
So I try to make it a comfortable classroom all the time because I want you to produce wonderful things. And I don't think kids can otherwise. So that's just my theory, but I know people would disagree with that. And I know everybody runs their classroom differently. People might think I'm a little too laid back and too chill with my students, but I will never change because you can't change a person. And as sappy as it sounds, I love my students. So I don't want them to feel bad. It is noticeable that the senior class is stressed out.
Why do you think that is?
To go on and on. That could be another podcast.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. We got time here.
So if you want my gut
instinct.
Well, I forget how many months ago it was. Several months ago, I was cleaning out some bins in my basement, and I found a framed picture of me. And it was from maybe my third or fourth year of teaching. And a media student came into the classroom while I was teaching, and they took a picture of me teaching the class from a side view. And I'm standing there teaching, and you can see the entire class in front of me. And I'm obviously into whatever I'm teaching because my hands are super expressive and my face is super expressive. And I looked at the picture, and immediately when I was looking at it, I had these warm feelings come over my body. And I thought, why did I love this time period in my teaching career? Why does this picture look different than something than what I'm feeling now? And then I realized it was so simple. The kids in the class who were in front of me in this picture were looking at me. They were looking at me. They were laughing at something I was saying. They were engaged. And there wasn't a phone on a desk because back then they didn't have phones. And I was the only source of entertainment. I was the only source of knowledge. If I said something, they didn't Google it. If they didn't know a word, they didn't look it up on Word Reference. It was a different kind of learning. It was a different kind of learning environment. And I know I sound like an old fogey when I say this, but it was beautiful. It was a beautiful time of teaching because I just remember when I would go to Spain over the summer and I would hear a song, I'd go, oh my gosh, I have to buy that CD so I can bring it home and play it in my classroom so my kids can hear it. And truly, if I didn't do that, my kids didn't know that music. Now, it's not sacred. It's something that my kids know because they listened to Spotify the night before or they found it on Pandora on YouTube. And so sometimes I'm the last person to learn about a song. I just learned yesterday that Post Malone did a duet with Nicky Jam and he's doing Sunflower in Spanish. And I thought, I didn't even know that. I wish I did, but my kids brought that to me. And so it's cool in a way because I learn from them, but the whole element of things being sacred within the classroom has disappeared and kids aren't as engaged. And I think that because of that, it causes more anxiety and stress. You're constantly checking things to see if somebody has posted something, or you're constantly being pulled in that direction, so you can't be fully present with a teacher in the classroom. And I think that face-to-face interaction actually lowers anxiety. Kara. And I believe in that still, and it's the year 2019, and I got to get up with the times, because if I don't, I'm going to get lost in the dust. But I would love a classroom policy with no phones, because I would love to go back to that time when I was in that picture talking and everyone was listening and laughing.
Yeah.
But today, I mean, kids sit in class with, what are they, AirPods?
Mm-hmm.
In their ears while I'm teaching, or they're checking their phone.
Yeah.
But it's a part of your life. And, and it would be contradictory for me to say that I don't approve of that because I love you guys. But at the same time, you have this constant distraction, and we have lost that bond that I used to have. So I still have it to a degree. But I think that's what leads to so much anxiety. You're constantly checking your email to see if you've been accepted to a school, and you're constantly checking, Facebook to see what you're invited to and not invited to, and I don't know, and Twitter, and the news now is constantly in your face. So it used to be a safe place. You'd come to school and maybe not know what was going on in the world until you got home and watched, the 7 o'clock news. Now you're constantly seeing the awful stuff that's happening in our country, and it's just, you don't disconnect, you never do. And so I think that's why you're anxious. Competition of who's going to what college. Like you see somebody post something like going to Notre Dame, and if you didn't get in, you feel like a failure. That didn't exist when when that picture was taken back then. So, I don't know. I feel for you guys. I'm empathetic to what you're going through, because I wish you knew what life was like without all of that. But at the same time, you never will. That's your life, and you'll adapt, and it'll be okay. But I just, I think that's why you have so much anxiety. It's just too much all the time. Too many things you have to be involved with. Too many reminders on Remind or Edmodo, or it's just too much all the time. I don't know. I wish you could just disconnect, go outside and play without phones or something, and relax.
I honestly wish we had no phones in the classroom.
Me too.
I agree with you. Mrs. Gearhart, we interviewed her last time, and she said the exact same thing. She actually used the word old folky too, which is why I was like, I don't know why all the teachers say that.
She and I are dear friends, and I think we're good friends for a reason. I think we have a lot of the same core values and beliefs.
Yeah. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that, the classroom is for learning. But we also touched on this last time, the internet and all that stuff has just expanded, what you can learn and what you know. It's all in the palm of your hand, on a laptop, whatever. And I think that's pretty amazing. And I honestly think that's where things are going.
Yes.
And I don't think we can do anything to stop it, because I think that, the way that we have been schooling people is old-fashioned.
Right.
And there's definitely grace in it, and there's definitely a reason why it's still done like that. But there's definitely aspects of it that could be made better through that technology.
Right.
But I don't think we'll ever really get back to that picture, which is it's sad in a way, honestly, because the feeling that you had immediately just looking at a picture, not even being in that moment, just the memory of having it.
Right.
Yeah, you touched on this dichotomy last time. You have all the information ever sitting in a box in your pocket.
Right.
But the problem is that you wouldn't initially think is that you can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And you're right. It will never go backwards, and I'll never experience that again. And maybe that's just, old fogies saying that when we went to college, we didn't know it was going to be like this someday.
I don't think it's old fogey to say that.
I don't know.
I don't think
I never
think
thought
old
I'd see
fogies.
this, but I would have been prepared for this,
Yeah. It really sprang up. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was fast.
Yeah, it was fast, and it's still fast. Honestly,
It's still going. It's just gonna get faster.
It wasn't even like this when we were kids.
No. No.
It wasn't this widespread and stuff. But the thing you said about constantly updating and constantly seeing what's going on in the world.
Right.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I've never heard that point of it. I've always heard the social media, text messages, all that.
Right.
But I've never heard about the news, because that's really important, and the 24/7 news thing is everywhere now. Everywhere. And it's constantly in your face, and there's different opinions, and there's what's true, what's not. Anything can be made up nowadays.
Right.
And you have to be educated on that, and some people aren't, and it just makes things sometimes worse. Or even if they are, you can't tell.
I used to do that. From 9th grade till junior year, I called myself a news junkie. I would get all these news notifications for all these different outlets, and I'd try to read all of them. I try to keep up to date. I try to read the newspaper. And at the end of the day, I just realized, what am I gaining from this?
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to stay up to date on the world when I was younger because I just thought it was new and I can learn so much from reading about it. But now, with perspective, I just look back and I'm just like, okay, you did it. I don't know if you have to be that engaged with it.
Right.
Because if you go back to the 80s, people went about their lives, and then at 7 o'clock they'd watch the news, and then that was it. That you watched.
And we survived.
Yeah.
And I think we had a lot less anxiety. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have statistics on that, but I think we just lived a more down-to-earth life and a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, because we're just all bombarded.
It's too much.
Social media, news,
And that just
college.
just makes everything worse too. Like, there's always stuff that can be taken out of context, stuff that can be completely false and just blown up to like a huge proportion, and it's not worth it.
Right.
Like, there's the old saying, like, ignorance is bliss. Sometimes that's true because, if you're hearing everything constantly all the time, it puts a weight on you as opposed to, hearing the stuff that's going to affect you, the important stuff, the stuff that they would have on the 7 o'clock news because they only have so much time to do it.
Right.
Just the important stuff,
Right.
not all the little things that are going on that all add up. That just
Right.
makes
Right.
it seem like we're living in a terrible world, which
Absolutely.
I don't know if we are. It's a good time to be alive, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I think it's been pretty good.
I just realized this. I think the reason it's so draining is because whenever you get a notification, you have an emotional reaction to it.
Right away.
Like, whenever I read the news, if something happened that I didn't like, I'd have an emotional reaction to it.
Yes.
Because most of the news you're
Yes.
going to get is negative.
Yes.
Right.
So it's just a constant drain on you,
Right.
first off.
Right.
And I mean, social media, unless you know everybody who you're following, you are going to be like either jealous or you're not going to care, or you're going to be like, why am I not there?
Exactly. Right.
There's not
Yeah.
too many positives from it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think, though, technology has helped us in many ways. For instance, back then, could I have had my students hear native speakers in the classroom? No, because I'm not a native speaker. So what exposure did they have to native speakers? But now we can do podcasts. Now we can listen to podcasts. Now we can listen to things live on YouTube and stuff. So there are those positives that I'm so happy we have, because it does open the doors to the rest of the world that otherwise you wouldn't see unless you traveled, which is expensive, and not many people will do it. So in that way, I think it has helped us, but I think it's also made us lazy and overwhelmed too, full of anxiety. Pros and cons, like everything.
Do you think that's true? Do you think it's made us lazier? Like, do you see, I guess, the way you could measure it, I guess, is look at how kids' work ethic has changed.
Work ethic has changed.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear your opinion in this school.
Okay, I know you have this issue too. When you're doing homework and you get a little ding on your phone, you're just like, what was that? I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to solve this math
4 hours
problem.
later.
Yeah. And then you go on your phone, you look at all the other notifications you got, and you're like, the world's an interesting place.
Yeah.
Right.
It just keeps going.
I know.
And it's hard to detach.
And to go to bed at a reasonable
that's
time
hard.
and to
That's
wake
up
up,
there.
and
That's
that's
hard.
why you're
This whole week.
exhausted.
Yeah,
That's
this
why
whole
you're
week.
exhausted.
I'm going to cop to it. This whole week I haven't slept at the time I should be.
Yeah.
I need to get 8 hours of sleep, otherwise I look like this. But it hurts.
What do you think?
No, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that it definitely kind of, like you were saying, like, it kind of shifts your focus a little bit from what you should be focusing on. Like, you're doing your math stuff, and there's a ding, like you said, and you constantly just get sucked into it immediately. And sometimes it's hard to get out of that because it becomes a habit almost, and you kind of put homework and school on like the back burner. Sometimes it's you're really focused, and I think when it comes down to it, kids know how to get stuff done. Like, there's the whole like, oh, you're just procrastinating. I think that's like a genuine technique for some people. Like, you have to get it done. There's not a lot of kids who are just going to completely be like, no, I'm not doing any of this work. It's completely useless. Like, maybe some kids will like, maybe not do as much as they should per night or whatever. But I think when it comes down to it, everyone's going to have a finished
Eventually
product. Yeah.
Pressure's good sometimes.
Exactly.
I think procrastination does help sometimes.
One of the things I wanted to ask was, so, with speaking of language, a foreign language, and having, English and Spanish in your arsenal, I guess, do you see, things like Google Translate and stuff where you can literally talk into the phone, or like there's devices you can put in your ear and someone will talk to you in another language and it'll just immediately like spout it in English right through your ear, so it's like you're not even seeing anything different. Do you see that as like something where maybe in the future there's not going to be as many people who speak 2 languages, or even like a Spanish or German department at all? Do you think?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I said that retirement is one of my biggest fears, and
Mhm.
losing my job is another very real fear. I hope that in my career I don't see that. I hope I don't ever. But this is my 15th year of teaching, and I'm starting to finally say, like, wow, there's not a lot I can do that the computer can't right now for these kids. And the computer, Google Translate, doesn't do a bad job anymore. I mean, it's pretty accurate most times.
Yeah.
Word reference, which my kids know I love, is very accurate. I mean, it's getting better and better and better. And so I do fear that, but I think this is a pretty expected answer. I do think that the human element of a language cannot be denied. I do believe a human makes learning a language not only possible, but enjoyable. And I don't think technology allows us to do that. I mean, anybody could hold a phone up and take a picture of a sign and it translates that for them. That doesn't take talent. That doesn't take intelligence. A former student of mine who can go to a country and communicate and live and experience that life without having to take their phone out every 3 seconds, to me that shows maturity, wisdom, intelligence, talent. So I hope that the powers will never say that we are irrelevant.
Right.
The powers to be, but
I don't think. I kind of disagreed with the premise of your question.
Really?
Because I was, like, thinking about it in my head. Like, we have a very globalized world now. Like, countries are kind of becoming one. So, I mean, if you're a business person, like, you got to know how to speak, like, car face-to-face.
I would hope. I mean, that's more efficient. I mean, no one's going to have time for everyone to pull up their phones and constantly, use Google Translate. That would make for a pretty boring business meeting or conversation, but who knows?
And I also think you're right, that when you do learn a language, I learned that this year, the culture part of it is so integral to the experience of learning a language. Like, I don't know how...
You can't separate it. You can't.
I don't know how different... I think it would be a lot more different if I learned Spanish with, like, Rosetta Stone versus being in Señora's class.
Right.
Like, with Rosetta Stone, you know the vocab and, like, how to pronounce stuff. But I get that in Señora's class, and I also get the culture aspect of it. Because literally all of the lessons we do in the year are vocab related to culture. Like big ideas that are happening in Spanish-speaking countries.
Do you take a language?
I don't anymore. I took German.
You were German.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Up until I didn't take AP this year.
Okay.
But I mean, I kind of want to play devil's advocate a little bit here.
Let's
But
go, Josh. Let's go.
Ooh.
So I love all the technology stuff, as you could probably tell. Big fan of it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really interesting to me because everything breaks down to a program at some fundamental level, right? Like humans we're just complex machines. We run on electricity, which I think is really cool. And like, there's things that we enjoy, like music and literature and poetry, stuff like that people are like, oh, robots will never, or technology will never be able to recreate that. But they're starting to do stuff like that. Like, there's patterns in music that people recognize in their minds, and it becomes catchy. Like, they use it in, like, jingles and, like, popular songs. If you, like, play them all, they all have, like, the same, like, backbeat that is, like, almost a tribal instinct for us, I guess you could say. Like, it's kind of ingrained in our subconscious. Like, that's something that you like. And I think it's scary because, like, those are very human things. Like, you think, playing an instrument, writing a book, writing a poem, it's like very personal, and if something that's not real, that doesn't have like a conscious or a soul, can recreate that, then like how are we special in any way?
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean that's just like the cultural thing that you were talking about. Like that's culture. Like that's at least part of it. I mean, there's like food, stuff like that, but like different countries have different music, literature, all that stuff, and if there's stuff that can create its own and create its own culture, therefore I think that's interesting, maybe scary in some ways.
We're not there yet, man.
Both.
Come on.
Interesting and scary.
I mean, not to
the
the degree that they overtake us.
No, I'm not saying overtake. I'm saying like mix. It's honestly a different culture. That's what it is. It's like, when you look at the history and you see, two different peoples coming together and creating something new. Roman Empire kind of spreading out and kind of absorbing all the different nations around them, and it's kind of building into a different culture. That's kind of what we see today with technology. in a way. You know, I would argue that we're even cyborgs in a way because, you know, we have phones on us constantly, like you were saying, constantly on us. And that it's not that, you know, you and your phone are a separate thing. It's you work together because alone you can't do what you do together. And I think it's like kind of almost evolved humans in a way. Do you know what I mean?
I think technology and human are slowly becoming one.
Yes.
Well,
It's an
it might not be
point.
like, you know, a brain implant or something like
No,
that.
no,
It's
I know
still,
what you're trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
like, you can't. A phone can't use itself.
Yeah.
It needs a human to.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think
It's
that's
pretty cool thought.
that can go along with, you know, language and stuff. And I think that you know, collaboration between humans and technology and stuff can lead to something cool. I think it can, you know, create music that maybe we could have thought of.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Even like the Google Translate, even though it's almost a threat, you know, in some cases and a distraction, like you were saying, pulling your phone out all the time, it also makes it so anyone can go anywhere and
Absolutely.
at least have a degree of being able to communicate.
Right.
Which is, it's cool because it's making the world a smaller place.
Uh-huh.
And that's what technology and the internet have really done. You know?
Sure.
It's scary to a lot of people, though.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
What do you?
Absolutely. No, I love hearing your thoughts. I think that's the first time I've ever considered any of that.
Same.
And that's profound. I mean, that's some deep thinking there. And I agree with you. I do.
Yeah, it kind of hit me too. That's the first time I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
That's some powerful stuff.
yeah. How has technology changed how you've seen students handle pressure or go through your classes?
Of course. But like we keep saying, maybe the same work ethic that was once valued isn't necessary anymore in today's world. So even though I've seen a change, maybe the argument would be, well, they don't need to work like that anymore because technology has made it easier. Maybe they don't need the same skills or the same, you know, repeat. I'm not a big fan of homework, to be honest with you. I know a lot of teachers use it every night. I don't. Because I see very little value in it nowadays. When you give kids homework, obviously the ability to copy it's right there in front of your face. It's very easy to copy and to cheat and not to do your own work. So I really don't assign it. So I've seen that change. I mean, I think homework may have been a little bit more valuable, but I mean, maybe nowadays it's not necessary to, you know, I remember once giving kids charts that they would have to fill out for homework with all the conjugations. Well, now all the conjugations are online for you. Maybe you don't need to do conjugations and charts anymore. If you want to know how to conjugate the verb, you know, decir, look it up on Word Reference. It'll tell you, you know. So maybe the needs are just changing. Maybe it's not as important anymore to make kids do rigorous work, you know, old school homework, if you will. Maybe that's not necessary.
I think simple skills like memorization, like rudimentary things like that, that's being phased out. I think you're going to need higher level skills like problem solving, critical thinking, being able to analyze something. I think those are the skills we need to have.
Yeah.
And I feel like schools right now haven't really caught up yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think in elementary schools we need to push problem solving and analyzation. I think we need to push that much more than we do memorization.
I agree.
Because if I go back to elementary school, or if I were to look at like the packet I got, it was just straight do this, keep doing it, repeat, rinse and repeat, and then memorize this term, and then that's your test. We need more of like, here's a new situation, use the skills that you have in your toolbox, and try to solve this.
Yes.
That's what we should be doing.
Absolutely. I agree. I'm a big fan of recycling information year to year, having kids use it in new ways, new applicable ways, meaningful ways so that they'll always remember it. If you just simply give students a chapter in isolation and ask them to memorize things, regurgitate it on a test, and then be successful in that content area, that's not going to happen. You need to have kids use it in meaningful ways.
Yeah, because I found if I just do that, I don't retain it.
Yeah, you have to use it over and over again. Recycling of information.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think to that point, like, the fact that we have all this information, like, we're in the 21st century at this point, there's been a lot that's been figured out already for us. No, like, you know,
I know.
Standing on shoulders of giants, right?
No, I just thought about it. You're right.
Yeah, if someone's already done work like that, then you can take that base and start at a higher level than they did.
Right.
and expand it
Right.
and grow further with it. And I think that's what's important for kids to learn about. Because I remember like in elementary school we would do like the tree octopus thing. Do you remember this? The librarian told us like look up this article on like the tree octopus.
Oh, it's fake.
And it's fake,
Yeah.
and that was what they were trying
Yeah.
to show is that like you can't trust everything. You have to be able to pick out what's real and cross reference and stuff like that. And I think that's an important skill to have, like that and problem solving and
Absolutely.
stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, thinking over there.
Do you think when you go to college and, I don't know, life kind of goes on for you, do you think Peters Township will still be your home?
I don't know. I mean, I watched the show Friends. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
familiar with that. Have you watched all of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like the last episode when everyone goes on, no spoilers, but everyone kind of moves on.
Thanks, Josh.
I was thinking about that when I saw it, and I'm like, that's kind of crazy because that's what's gonna happen this year. Like we're leaving. It's a new stage of life, and I don't think it's ever. This is always where I'm gonna be from. Like exactly what you're talking about with like running around in the woods, building forts. Playing in the stream, catching crayfish. I did that exact same thing, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And that's, it's a memory I still have today, and obviously you still have that too. So it's not going to go away. And I think that memories are always something you can hold on to, no matter what happens. So house gets sold, new owners change what it looks like, new developments get built right on top of your fields and forts, and it's always going to be there in your mind. And I think that as long as you remember it. It doesn't really matter because it's the feeling you got. It's not what you learned in the moment, or I guess it is what you learned in the moment, but not it's the feeling you had.
The emotion is always
the emotion, right?
the
Exactly
first
like the
thing
quote. Exactly like the quote.
Have you lived here your whole life? Didn't you guys move here?
Yes, we lived right around Trinity.
Okay.
So we would have been in that school district.
Mm-hmm.
We moved here when I was 3 or 4. So I basically started school here. So I just. My old house, I just lived there when I was like really young, and then here's where I actually started remembering things. Yeah, exactly.
You've gone to Peters Township School District your whole life, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you
I'm the same
as
way.
well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Do you consider that? Do you think this will always be home?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the experience I've had here has honestly just been so positive. Like when I look back on my childhood, I was just like nothing but happy. Like when I saw your daughter yesterday, that's what I was thinking of. Like I hadn't seen like a small child like that in such a long time. I've just been surrounded with adults and people my age, and it's just it gets old sometimes. And just to see a kid who's just happy all the time, it's just like just dopamine firing. It's so nice to just see her and then reconnect with your own childhood. And so, that's how I feel, and I still feel like that, And when you get to high school, I mean, things change a little bit. Like it's like a curve. It gets bumpier.
Yeah.
But I've just been happy, Like middle school, when I look back on it, I was just happy all the time. Elementary school, I was happy all the time.
Yeah.
So I think this will always be my home. Like when I look back on it, I'll feel positive for sure. But
Good.
I think part of me though is like kind of just wants to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Just like
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, you want to experience different things. I mean, college.
Yeah, I think
completely different experience. It's nothing like we've ever experienced before, and it's it's part of life, and it's what makes you kind of figure out who you are.
Yes.
And that's that's important.
Yep.
And if it brings you back here, then so be it, right?
That's a good question. Do you think kids nowadays have a problem with finding either who they are,
That's good.
or do they have a problem with embracing who they are? Personally, I haven't answered the question. I think
kids and adults alike.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
I think
That's such a good
adults
point,
don't know who they are anymore because there is a constant flow of information and you are constantly looking at everybody else's life now. You don't know who you are anymore because as much as we hate to admit it, this is a world of comparison. And so we're constantly comparing. And how do you know if you're truly happy if you're looking at everyone else posting pictures of their quote happiness, not of their sadness, and you think if that's what happiness is, then I need to do those things too. I think kids and adults now are being lost in the social media world. And I don't know if even adults, like I'm not saying that we're all walking around perfect and happy because we didn't grow up with social media. We have it now. We're like you.
Yeah.
We don't use it, I don't think, as much as you do, but we still have it. And it's a new challenge in our lives as we're looking at everybody else's life, comparing, and Yeah, I think that's a constant struggle. I don't think it's just teenagers. I think it's adults as well.
I think what Tanish was saying, like looking back at like middle school and elementary school, and just like you're so happy all the time, and like while it's also part of being young, I feel it's also like being a part of not really caring about other people.
Yeah.
Like you're just who you are at that point, and it's once you grow up and you know you kind of see the worldly things that are being pushed on you, you kind of lose that
Innocence.
it's innocence, but it's not innocence in a bad way. It's because you're being who you are, and that's who you always are deep down. You know, even if you try to hide it or ignore it or something, it's who you are.
You're right.
And
I didn't even think of that.
It's
like when you see somebody who's a lot younger than us
Mhm.
and they have a phone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
Yeah, I will tell you
Yeah.
there is hope though, because I know you're saying like middle school you were like so happy and innocent, and people might say those were your best years of your life or the happiest, or your elementary years, but I will tell you now, and I think in our culture we're so embarrassed all the time to say our age. I don't understand that. I'm very proud of my age. I'm 37 and I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. So I think with age and wisdom comes there's finally a point where you do self-actualize, and I've also been through some very, very difficult things that I never saw coming in my life. And you would think that I would be bitter because of those things, but I have a saying, you're either bitter or better. And I think those moments made me better. And I think because I've experienced those things and I've seen true, trial and tribulation, and I've seen true hardship and heartache, I'm now a more empathetic person. I'm more appreciative of everything. I have gratitude in my heart every day for things. And I think that in turn makes you a happier person. So I'm actually the happiest I've ever been. And life's not perfect. And it never will be. But I'm the happiest and most confident in my who I am now. Because, I do believe that we're all, like, there's only one Caitlin Lee McKenna Ulf in the world, right? And I was made this way for a reason, and so I'm happy with who I am and what I've gone through in my life, what I've made it through, and I don't want to be anybody else, But it's hard with social media. It's hard to look at that stuff, and you think you could be doing something better or look better or whatever, but let's be honest, that's not who you're supposed to be.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is people will sometimes say, like, if you see that stuff on social media and you see someone who you want to be like, or they have something you want, it's motivation. But while that might be true in some cases, and while it may show you, like, what you could get, I guess, it's what do you sacrifice to get that? Because sometimes, doing those things or getting the things you feel like you want, getting to them isn't always, you have to sacrifice part of yourself for it.
Right.
And I don't think it's worth it
No.
in any case, honestly.
No. Right.
Because you gotta, staying true to yourself and, being happy with who you are is really important. And I think that, that's definitely part of the reason why, everyone's always so stressed out and stuff.
You mentioned,
exactly.
I was always, when I phrased the question, I thought it was kids who don't know how to find themselves. And then you mentioned adults too. And I was like, you're right. Because I thought.
Oh, yeah, it's worse than ever now.
Yeah.
Adults can't find themselves.
And I thought of there's this one movie I saw, it's called Boyhood, and it's about this kid, you see him grow up. They shot it for 12 years, and each year they came back to this kid and they reassembled his family and they shot more of the movie. So they had this whole story arc that they had. It's on Netflix if you guys want to watch it. But at the end of the movie, he's about to go to college and he's talking to his dad, and he's unsure about what his next steps are. And then his dad just says something to him, and it was, in the movie it wasn't that important, but when I heard it, it struck me really hard. It was like, you think you're winging it, dude? He's like, adults are winging it every day.
Every day.
And that shocked me. Because as a kid, when I look up to my parents, I'm like, they know what's up. They know what's going on. They're good people. They know what they're doing. They'll keep me safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As a kid, I had a normal childhood,
Right.
That's what I thought. And when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're winging it every day. Every day.
Yeah.
We're doing the best we can with what we have.
And it's scary. I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit scary, but I don't know. I think we'll both land and we'll find our feet pretty quickly.
Oh my gosh! If there's one thing, I always say I'm never smarter than my students. I'm only wiser because I've been on the earth longer than you, and one thing I can't promise you anything. I can't promise you success. I can't promise you wealth. I can't promise you a family. Any of that, But I can promise you, like, everything that I've ever experienced in life is that it's going to be okay. At the end, it's going to be okay. No matter what, everything's going to be okay. I said that to the class of 2015, too. It's true. Everything will be okay in the end. You have good futures ahead of you.
That's really reassuring.
Everything's going to be okay.
Honestly.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Everything's going to
What
be
did
okay.
Steve Jobs said in like a commencement speech? He's like, it's hard because you can't see the future. You know, you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
Mm.
So you just have to have that faith to pursue what you want to do.
Yes.
And you have to do what you love.
Yes.
Because if you do something that you don't love, whenever you come up to an obstacle, you're not going to have the inner like motivation to go past it.
Right.
You're just going to give up.
Right.
But if you do something that you love, like whenever you come up to an obstacle, you're going to persevere. You're going to get through it.
Right. And I can pinpoint, I can pinpoint 2 crises in my life. And in the moment, you say, why is this happening to me? Like, I'm a good person, right? I don't deserve this. Like, what in the world made me experience this? But now, today, I look back, and those 2 things definitely happened for a really good reason. Like, that's not just cliche, because the first crisis led me to where I am today. The second crisis got me to where I am today. And now I can honestly tell you I'm the happiest I've ever been. I mean, I learned significant life lessons in those moments and became a better human. So in the time, you don't understand why it's happening to you, but then you look back, you connect the dots, and you realize why they happened, because now you're here, and that's where you're supposed to be. It's deep. You'll see. You're only, 18? 17?
17.
I'm 18. Yeah. I'm older.
3
months.
You'll see all of this, and you'll remember that.
3 months and 1 day, actually, yeah. That probably gave you so much perspective because I guess in your low moments, when you're finally happy again, you just see how far you've come.
Yeah.
Like, I always just see, like, a graph in my head. I don't know why.
I
don't know why. It's just because I'm weird. But, like, if you have, like, on the y-axis, you have growth, and then on the x-axis, you have time. Do you know what you see it? You see it? And then you just have, ideally, you have a line, but the life's crazy, so you have this, like, curve. You go up and down, but you keep going up, hopefully, ideally.
GDP.
Yeah. Yeah, GDP of the U.S. That's economics right there. When I think about who you are, Senora, you're somebody who followed your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, your heart wants to be in the school,
Mm-hmm.
and you pursued that.
Mm-hmm.
Your heart wants to teach kids, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, what advice do you have for kids who have some obstacle, whether it's themselves or something external? They want to follow their dreams, but they don't have the strength to do it. Like, what could you say to them? Because you're somebody who's done it, and that's not very many people.
You have to know your gift. You have to know your gift. You were given a gift, and you have to find it, and you have to follow that regardless, because I didn't get into teaching for the money, right? Nobody does. I knew my gift was connecting with other people and being able to speak a different language. I put the 2 together, it's teaching Spanish, okay? And I knew those were my gifts, and so I followed that. I didn't listen to people who said you're not going to make any money in teaching. Teaching's hard. I could never last in a high school classroom. You're going to get burned out. If I had listened to them, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be at, honestly, the happiest point in my life like we talked about. You have to follow your gifts. If your gift is people, you have to do something with people. If your gift is mathematics, you do something with math, with money, with finance, something like that. If your gift is, it goes on and on, science, then you become a chemist, or you have to follow your gift, or I don't think you'll ever truly be happy. It's not about money. I mean, money is important, don't get me wrong, but I am very comfortable. I can provide for my family. I have wonderful health care that I never ever take for granted a second in my life. Life is good, and because I used my gifts. If I would have done what my parents maybe would have taught me to, even though my parents they never told me what to do, by the way. They never told me you should be a blank. But no matter what, I knew from the minute I stepped into middle school Spanish and I realized Spanish was coming easily to me. Why would I quit doing something that I was good at and that I love just to do something that would make more money or would have more fame attached to it or more? It doesn't make sense to me. I feel like so many people go off they don't want to stray off the beaten path. They want to do everything that their parents tell them to do or what their friends tell them to do or what their school district or the world tells them. Do what you are gifted in doing. So you're not lying to yourself. Then you're not lying to yourself. Every day I wake up, I know I'm doing the right job.
How did you, in the moment, it's so hard to see long term because you don't know how it's going to turn out.
No, you have no
so
idea.
In the
you
moment,
take a risk.
In the short term, how do you clear out the noise? Other people or, people who tell you don't do it for the so. How'd you do it?
Honestly, I didn't listen. I knew what was in my heart. I knew what was going to make me happy. I couldn't picture myself in the world of business. I couldn't picture myself in the world of, medicine. That just wasn't who I was. That's not why I was put on this earth. So I just listened to my inner voice. I realized that I had a strength for some reason. I was given a strength. I can speak languages well. I was raised in a family. My mom was raised in Italy for a portion of her life, and my family spoke Italian my entire life. I could hear it. Of course I made a connection with Spanish because they're so similar, and I saw how language was so important in my family, so I just kept following that, and it didn't matter what anyone else said because I didn't want to do those things. And so it's so cheesy to say it, but I just followed my heart. I didn't listen to everybody else. If I had, I wouldn't be happy. It's such a simple answer. It seems like there should be so much more to it, but it's not. It's your gift. It's what brings you life. That's what you have to listen to, in my opinion.
What would you say to someone who said, I don't have a gift, or I don't know what my gift is, or, something like that? Like, do you think that...
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, you think that they just know
Everybody has a gift.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be a textbook, a defined gift. It just could be something that moves them, something that gives them passion. I mean, and then, then go from there, connect the dots. Like, think from there, what can I do with this thing that moves me? What can I do with this? Even like now in my life, another passion that just kind of fell into my lap recently within the last few years is women's health and pediatrics and things like that, because my son was born with a life-threatening condition. I never thought that would happen in my life. It did. And now I see such a need for improvements in women's health and women's mental health in NICU life, because I lived in a NICU for 2 months with my son. Like, those things will come in your life that you never expect, and then they make you even more passionate about something. I never thought I would care about women's health, perinatal mood disorders, things like that happen to women after things like that happen, and now, because they happen to me, I have more knowledge, I have more passion about something, and now I want to do something with that. You never know what's going to happen to you and what new knowledge you'll acquire, what new gifts you'll have, and where that'll take you. Honestly, when I do retire, like you said, would you go to another country? I used to say, like, oh, I'll move to Spain. That was like the dream. But why?
Right.
Why move to Spain? But now my new dream is to open up a home for mothers who have postpartum depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, to bring their babies there and to get healthy with their babies who may have gone through traumatic things. Like, that's my new passion, So now I have Spanish and I have women's health and babies as my passions. Never thought that 5 years ago that would be it, but I have to listen to that, and then who knows what'll happen in my future,
I'm excited to see.
Yeah.
I hope.
Did you ever watch Spider-Man 2?
I've seen parts of it.
Well, Spider-Man goes to the doctor's office once, and he's having trouble with his powers. Like, when he wants to, web sling, the webs won't come out.
Uh-huh.
So he's in a difficult spot. And so he's like, the doctor's like, well, I don't see anything physically wrong with you. So my diagnosis would be up here in your head.
Yes. Yeah.
He's like, I have this dream, when I try to climb walls, I can't do it. Well, why does Spider-Man try to climb these walls? And he's like, I don't know. Uncertainty is the worst Like when we feel uncertain, that's what causes anxiety. It's what
Yes.
causes fear.
Yeah.
All the negative things, I think, come from some type of uncertainty.
Right.
So I feel like, I don't know, for a lot of people, they might be uncertain about what they want to do. I'm definitely one of those people. I don't know right now exactly what I want to do. I can't put my finger on it and tell you.
No.
And I guess I'm young, so I guess I got time.
Why?
But what do you do? What do you do in my case? You know,
Because you can't pinpoint it. Why do you have to pinpoint it right now?
then I'll feel certain. You know, then I won't feel anxious or afraid. You know, like I feel like everybody wants to be secure.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's hard to feel secure when you don't know what's gonna happen.
Right, but you're never going to know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
You have no idea.
But now you're thinking about it when you're uncertain.
Yeah, but then when that happens, like, who are you going to fall in love with and marry someday? Do you know?
No,
What
I
if-
couldn't.
What if that woman speaks Chinese? You will then have a reason and a motivation and ambition to learn Chinese. It will be meaningful to you. You may do something with Chinese in your life. You don't know what's coming down the pike. God forbid anything health-wise happens. But let's say you're diagnosed with something. You never saw that coming, but that's your new passion. That's your new gift. You can't predict. You can't be completely secure right now.
And I even think, you know, I mean, I'm pretty sure what I want to do, and I have a plan that I want to follow.
What
And
is that?
I mean,
Before you continue.
So I'm going to Georgia Tech. I've committed there.
For you.
I'm going to do mechanical engineering,
Okay.
and like my dream job, I guess, would be working for DARPA, and they do robotics for the military, so national security through robotics.
Wow.
So I don't know if you've ever seen like it's like a humanoid robot. It did like a backflip.
Oh my gosh.
The dog that like it's like a big robot dog that like jumps over stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean that's my passion, like research and development
amazing.
of protecting the U.S. stuff like that,
Yeah.
being on the cutting edge. But that may not happen, and if that doesn't happen, I might be disappointed in it. And that's why I think that you not knowing exactly what you want to do, it might be a good thing, because then if you had a plan and it doesn't work out, you might be disappointed. But I think that you're going to have opportunities in your life that are going to come up, and you're going to know what you want to do through them. Exactly like what you said with like
Yeah.
you're going to have a motivation to have a passion, even if you don't feel like you have one now. It'll come.
And I think the same with you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're probably gonna fail at some point, you know.
Mhm.
But because it is your passion, you're gonna get back up and you're gonna try again.
We all fail. We all fail.
Yeah.
And I told you, I added secondary ed my senior year of college. Like, who adds a third major your senior year
Yeah.
of college? I did. Thank God I did. If I hadn't, I wouldn't be here. You'll see. It's gonna happen. You're gonna see how life twists and turns and takes you where it's supposed to go.
There's another quote. So many
All these
quotes.
yeah.
So many quotes. You and I love quotes.
Yeah, I love
because
quotes.
they're so. I know.
It's like you can come up with a plan, but life always has a way to rearrange
But
it.
aren't you kind of excited that you don't have a plan in place? Like,
That's the optimist perspective, yeah.
Mm.
And I'm naturally an optimist, except when it comes to myself.
I know, because you can't see yourself the way we can.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't know. I don't want this conversation to end.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's good.
I appreciate that. I really enjoyed it too. I learned a lot from both of you today. That was cool.
Do you have anything else you want to
Hours long.
add?
If I really get a chance to sit down and pick the brains
I got
of...
time. Do you got time?
I'd love to pick your brains. We never get to. We don't have time
Yeah.
to talk to our kids about real life.
That's
is
why we
for.
started
That's
this
what this is
podcast.
for.
We don't have a
Because
chance.
We looked at it and we're like, we know our teachers pretty well, but then we thought about all the other kids at our school and like, do they know their teachers
I would
really well?
love to write a list of questions and ask you
Sure.
so that I can see if my beliefs and what I perceive to be true are really really true.
You gotta be safe
It's
here
a
because
select. I know it's
Yeah.
a select group, and it's
It's the begin-
I would
it's the
say
beginning
we're-
of the data pool,
small
right?
sample.
yeah, I would say we're
but it'd be.
outside the normal range of
But your
thought.
Still in it.
quality,
Yeah.
your quality young men, and I think you would instill some hope. I think it would be awesome for teachers to listen to as well. Other teachers to listen to hear what's really going on in your brains and in your lives.
Yeah.
What you need and what you appreciate in the classroom. We never pull the students really and ask what they need from us in terms of curriculum. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? We ask what can we do to improve the school and what activities can we do, but what you are the clientele. You are the taxpayers. What do you need? from us.
You know, what you're saying is almost making so much
Because
sense.
if times
What?
are changing,
Yeah.
and you're seeing a need for something that we're not providing you
Yeah.
in our curriculum, what would benefit you? How can we enhance what we're doing?
I think it goes back to what we said in the beginning. We need
Mhm.
more focus on problem solving, critical thinking, analyzation.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't need any more
Right.
rote memorization,
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean, I can memorize a date, but
But
I'm
what's
not
that
going
gonna
on
do for
Jeopardy
you?
tomorrow.
What's that
Yeah,
going to do for you?
Yeah.
I'm teaching a unit right now about Spanish artists. And the first thing that pops up is the artist's name and the date they were born and died. I'm never going to test my kids on that. What does that mean? How is that relevant? Know the time period, know what was relevant back then, what was happening in history that led that artist to paint what he painted.
Mhm.
But we don't need to know dates. We don't need to memorize things like that.
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
one of the things that did an A push was like when we would have a test and there would be like a war on it or like a specific battle never would be tested. It's always what were things like before the war, what were things like after the war, because that's the important part, the impact of it, not the specifics. Because
Or they gave you political. I always enjoyed those. They give
Mhm.
you a political cartoon
Mhm.
or two that were opposites.
Yeah.
And you had to say why,
Mhm.
or you had to say what was each one trying to tell the audience.
Right, I thought that was
That was always
a
cool. It
good,
made you
nice
think.
way of teaching.
Maybe you could be the start of my research for a future PhD.
I'd be down for that.
Cool.
You have so many
100%.
dreams.
I have so many dreams. It makes the things it gives. My anxiety isn't what is my purpose on
Yeah.
life. I think I figured it out. I just don't know how to make it happen. You need a lot
It's
of
a
money to
lot.
make things happen.
Mhm.
Money.
Money's always the issue. I hope somebody calls Ellen or something someday, and I get on the Ellen show, and she writes me a huge check to open up a facility for moms and babies. How else are you gonna do it? You know?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Money.
life is difficult.
So many not fun adult things that we have to start worrying about now.
Fun things.
Yeah.
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 All
It
right.
all works
All right.
out.
The
it all
optimist.
works
It's
out.
all gonna be okay. That's
Yeah.
the moral of today's lesson.
You are a relentless optimist.
I wasn't always.
Really? I can't see you not
oh
being-
my gosh.
So you're telling me at some point in your life you were a pessimist?
Yes. In the
How?
midst of, like I told
Oh.
you, the two
Oh, I see, I
crises
see.
and things, I
see.
thought,
Yeah.
why is this happening to me? I never
Mm.
did anything to deserve all of this. And then now I'm an optimist because I saw how the dots connected.
Yeah. I'll
If
go
the
through it.
first thing hadn't happened in my life that happened, I wouldn't have Violet and James. So how in the world can you say, I wish that never happened?
Right.
If that didn't happen, I wouldn't have James and Violet. How is that even possible?
Mm.
They're my world. You know what I mean? So that had to happen. Something had to be removed quickly from my life in order for me to go like this and go where I was supposed to go. But you couldn't have told me that then, you know?
Yeah.
So you have to look at that. Like, do you remember, I'm actually not going to use his name in case this part goes
Yeah.
out there. A student just came back to talk to me and Mrs. Gearhart and Mrs. Koken and Mrs. Kendrick.
She told me.
On
Mrs.
Monday,
Koken told me about
after
this,
school.
actually. Yeah.
This student, I will never forget his senior year. He had a lot going on. His dream, the only thing that was going to make him happy that year was if Notre Dame accepted him. That's why I said Notre Dame earlier. Notre Dame rejected him. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't think of a better student. Like, what else do you want? This student was just outstanding, incredible as a human being, as a student. I never thought he'd be rejected from Notre Dame, and he was. And it was the only thing that he needed that year to, like, get over the hurdles that he had. And they rejected him. I will never forget the day he was rejected. Mrs. Gearhart will never forget the day. Now he's at John Carroll. He wasn't excited to go to John Carroll. I went to his graduation party. John Carroll banners were everywhere in the colors of John Carroll, but I could tell he was miserable. I could tell he was so unhappy. He self-actualized, came back on Monday, and told us stuff that I never thought I'd ever hear from a former student about how that rejection took him to John Carroll and how John Carroll just changed his life. And again, he's like me. He's like, I'm who I want to be. He would have never had the opportunities he has now. He would never know the people that he knows now. He would never have had this life-changing experience if he hadn't gone to John Carroll. That's why, now he goes, that's why Notre Dame rejected me, because I wasn't supposed to go there. They didn't want me. I was supposed to go to John Carroll. They wanted me, and this experience that he had at John Carroll changed him for the better. He now switched his major. He was, I forget what he even was in the beginning. He's Spanish now. Spanish major.
That's cool.
Do you think the world was telling him major in Spanish? Everyone was saying, no. Now he's following his heart, his dreams, his gifts, and he realizes that rejection got him to where he's supposed to be. He doesn't look back at all now. See, that stuff's going to happen. You're going to see it. You're going to, I like how you said connect the dots.
That wasn't me. That was Steve Jobs.
But you think back. Steve Jobs was right. You think back and you go, whoop, yep, I get it. And only more is going to happen in my life. Life is constant. The next tragedy that happens in my life, guess what? I'll get through it. I didn't think I could get through the first two. I did. Life is good. Yeah. Life is really good.
Life is good.
So good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming
thank
on.
you for coming and having an amazing conversation with us.
I loved this. This gave me life.
I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah,
I'm set.
As well.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for coming in
Thank
on
you
a
so
Friday
much.
after school.
Oh, absolutely.
It means
and
a
I
lot
hope you'll
to
accept
us.
my invitation when I do Talking to Students edition.
For our listeners, Mrs. Ulf and us have discussed an episode of this podcast where the teacher interviews the students. In the future, we will be sitting down with Mrs. Ulf and she will be asking us questions and we will be giving our opinions instead of the other way around. It will be a reverse podcast. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that just
Stay
as much.
tuned.
Yeah.
It'll be a breath of fresh air to interview both of you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a happy weekend.
You too.
You too.